Hello everybody, welcome back to the Talking City podcast with myself, Conor McGilligan, your multimedia producer and YouTube host. I'm joined by your Manchester City writer, Simon Bajkowski, for this one as well. And I just want to point out the new set. I hope you enjoy the new background here. We've got the new Talking City logo here. We've got a nice light here as well, Si. Got some plants.
Very nice.
A wooden guy here as well.
Someone has very much enjoyed the trip to IKEA, haven't they?
They have.
But also, bespoke sign.
Yeah.
Get the badge in.
It's nice, isn't it? It's a very neutral vibe. I get told by my girlfriend a lot that it's Scandi vibes. So
with Haaland, it's fitting.
There we go. Nice transition again. Another fantastic segue. But yeah, so be expecting it to get even better, everyone, because we're trying to evolve all the time here on the Talking City podcast. So, Si, everything good? You okay?
Yeah. Just, delighted that we finally got some plants for the podcast. That's what someone did come up to me and said, it's a great podcast, but do you know what you're missing? Plant.
and a wooden guy as well.
Yeah.
So I want to start with something, and I don't want to start with player chat at the minute. I've been speaking to you just off air there about my flat at the minute and how hot it is and how unbearable it is. They basically decided to paint my flat, and I'm at the top floor, as I mentioned to you before. So it's boiling up there. They've decided to paint, and it is, they're suffering painting it as well. And it's just, what is it with this weather? And we've had a really rough summer, haven't we? And it gets to September, and suddenly it's 40 degrees.
Hottest day of the year yesterday, yeah.
Is that what it was?
Absolutely mad, yeah.
Oh, yeah. God. But yeah, just, it makes this podcast environment a bit warm, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. But we'll be back to normal soon.
On to Manchester, everything Manchester City. City 5, Fulham 1 for the international break. Not a bad ending, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was quite a weird performance. It wasn't that first half, especially, was just like really un-City-like. And you're walking away thinking they've not played very well there, and they've beaten a side who should comfortably avoid relegation 5-1. It kind of summed up the start, really. They've not been firing on all cylinders. There's still like loads more to come from the team. You feel like there's more to come from Haaland, from Alvarez, from Foden. And yet they're top of the league, having not dropped a point and scored a lot of goals and not conceded too many. So it's been a very positive start.
Were Fulham good, or was City just off it? Because I thought they were one of the better. How can you say they're one of the better teams and still lose 5-1? But they did feel a little bit better than.
It's always hard. It's always hard to answer that question. Like when City played Newcastle, like we both spoke about, we didn't feel like Newcastle gave that much ambition to the game, but then you sort of have to counter that with, well, City controlled them really well, and City controlled the midfield. And if you control the midfield, you've got the game, and Newcastle can't do much. It felt like City were bad rather than Fulham were good. On Saturday, City just giving the ball away like too often. Jeremy Doku on his first start sort of showed glimpses, but also showed, I thought, nerves, which is understandable, but we're not really used to seeing at the Etihad. But he was a bit nervous, and defence and midfield just giving the ball away too easily, and that kind of allowed Fulham to have more of the ball and have more chances. I think it was after like half an hour, and Fulham had maybe I think they'd had 3 corners in the opening half hour. It felt like they had a lot of corners, and then you looked and it was kind of more in that opening half an hour than City had let Newcastle or Sheffield United have. So it was a sloppy start from City, but they then did what they do and recovered really well.
Yeah, I thought so as well. It was a bit of an odd performance, but it's crazy. You're watching these performances and you're still seeing them. The outcome's just nuts, isn't it? You look at 5-1 face value, and it's a battering on paper, isn't it? But it really didn't feel like that again, did it?
No. But I guess that is sort of the power of Erling Haaland more than anything. I think. When Malilo said afterwards, he can have a bad game but still score and have a bad game and still score 3 goals. And you know, I didn't think he was terrible by any means, but he struggled to get in the game and get into his rhythm until he did, and then scored 3 goals. And it's like, yeah, he's just kind of like, he can single-handedly take games away from teams and make it look like a drubbing even when it isn't. And that is kind of what he did. City were better in the second half. They came out and they played better in the second half, but yeah, it still wasn't a performance that smacked of 5-1.
It was quite nice to see as well, obviously Haaland getting the 3, but it was quite nice to see some of the subs making an impact as well, wasn't it? I mean, Sergio Gomez, that assist was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? And hopefully that gives him a little bit of confidence. And, you know, those rotation options we've spoken about before are going to be so imperative for City this season, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, I got a bit of flack in my player ratings actually for suggesting that Sergio Gomez didn't do much.
Oh.
May or may not have forgotten to include his assist.
It may have been slightly inflated because of the assist, but on the general balance of play, I do agree with you. I don't think he was...
No, well, yeah, someone turned to me actually and said, oh, he's, you know, struggling to get involved, did he? And then, like, 30 seconds later, he'd pull the ball on a plate for Haaland. So, yeah, and it's going to be interesting with Gomez because City are kind of light on wingers, I suppose. Grealish was not in the squad because he was injured, so Gomez has kind of been played in that left wing position more since it kind of became obvious that he couldn't really work it out as a left back. So I think we'll see him more there this season. And yeah, if he can keep putting the ball on a plate for Haaland, then he will get more minutes. But yeah, and Oscar Bob, there was a lot of excitement around, and there's a lot of excitement in Norway about him. And in this room, yeah, and he came on and, yeah, did very well. Again, a few signs of nerves and a few signs of bad decisions, but he certainly equipped himself well and got stuck in and showed some fancy footwork.
Yeah, I was speaking to Joe about it, and there was just a point, I don't know if it was, well, obviously it must have been second half, where he got the ball and just sort of like slalomed through the central space and took 2 or 3 on, and you thought,
yeah.
That's going to be pretty good.
And obviously there's been like loads of Norway reporters over to cover Haaland, and they all want to cover Haaland, but also there's been this kind of hype around Oscar Bob because of that, because he's like one of the next talents coming through, and if you can't get to Haaland, well, Bob might be the next big thing. And yeah, so, you know, I was talking to one of them at the weekend, and they were like, you know, two Norwegians in the best team in the world.
Odegaard as well, doing bits at Arsenal.
Well, yeah, but, you know, it's a small nation, and, you know, they're desperate to qualify for a major tournament. But yeah, the sort of present and future near present is looking pretty bright at the minute.
Wanted to discuss as well the partnership that we're seeing at the minute being forged with Foden and Alvarez. So we've seen a lot of it so far this season, haven't we? I mean, what's your evaluation so far on that? Do you think as a long-term strategy that's something that Pep's going to go with?
Yeah, I think at the minute with Foden and Alvarez, we're kind of seeing... I think that's partly what's behind City not looking at their best, because I think they can both kind of look very good and produce kind of bits that win matches, but they're also not the typical number 8s that you would see that kind of Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan have had kind of locked down for the last few years. They're probably more like a number 10 than a number 8, just kind of a bit too advanced and not as concerned with their defensive responsibilities. And I think them just being a bit higher up the pitch kind of has caused City to look a bit not as joined up as they might be. And also you've got kind of, if you play both of them in the middle, you generally leaving the right side open, because, you know, Foden started off on the right against Fulham and then switched to the left and then moved into the middle. So you sort of, as fluid as it can be to sort of frustrate opponents and not know what they're doing, it can also make it look as though City aren't quite as fluid as they should be. But we saw Alvarez getting into the box for Haaland to cross/shoot for him. And Foden, I think each game he's played, he's had one kind of run that should have ended in a spectacular goal and hasn't quite. So he seems like he's quite nearly there.
That's the De Bruyne thing as well, isn't it? It's because there's always an outcome with De Bruyne, isn't there? And I think that's the thing with Foden. It's just edging closer to that end product consistently.
Yeah, and I think it's just there is potential in them, but they are different players, and it is really difficult to sort of try and replace players like De Bruyne and Gundogan.
Or compare, really.
Or compare, yeah. But, you know, Foden and Alvarez have their own talents, and the team will adapt to how they play as much as they adapt to the team. So we're just in that phase at the minute where everyone's kind of working each other out again, and everyone's working out exactly how they want to play in this system and how they should play and what brings the best out of each other. But, you know, Haaland was asked recently, you know, to tip a player who he thinks will have a big season, and he said Foden. So if City are clearly seeing a lot from Foden that they're liking, and then Alvarez just has this knack to get involved in goals. He's just like, you can have large spells of the game where he doesn't look like he's doing anything, or he's not doing anything particularly well, but he's always close to being involved in a goal in a similar way that Haaland is really. And I think one of my colleagues kind of made the point that, like, can you have Haaland? You can have Haaland up top, not doing much on his own. Can you have two players like that? Which is still to be answered, but it seems to be working just about at the minute.
Yes, I think it's going to be really interesting to see the Foden-Alvarez effect against some of the better teams in the division, because obviously the litmus test at the minute has been Newcastle, but I know you were saying on the day that you thought it was going to be a difficult one for City, that one, because of the squad makeup at that moment in time. But I think it's going to be interesting when you're coming up against your Man Uniteds, your Arsenals, that sort of calibre of team, really.
I think West Ham's going to be really interesting, like, not just because it's the next game, but like David Moyes has been one of the better managers for setting up against Man City in recent years. And, you know, they've beaten Chelsea, they've beaten Brighton. I think they're unbeaten after 4. And they will, at their own ground, I think they'll be really present a real challenge that City will have to overcome. I think it's one of those games where, you know, it'll be very much important that Guardiola's back on the sidelines, because it may kind of need that in-game management to just to get the better of them. But yeah, with Alvarez as well, it's kind of like we see him for Argentina, and he kind of like does Messi's running for him, and we're not quite seeing that same partnership with Haaland, but he's kind of more integrated with the rest of the team. So
he's not suffering, is he, Haaland, whatsoever, because of the De Bruyne absence?
No. Which people said, you know, he might struggle to get goals, and it's Erling Haaland. You know, I saw he'd like his form from the first 4 games, exactly the form from the first 4 games last season, and 6 goals in 4 games is pretty good going. So I think he needs a hat-trick at West Ham to keep it up. So.
Did he get 2 last year?
We got consecutive, yeah.
Yeah, he got 2, didn't he? Got a penalty, didn't he, as well, I think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, he got 2 at West Ham, but he got consecutive hat-tricks. I think came 4th game and the 5th game. So, yeah, pressure on.
So who's been so far? Could you? Because we've said before, I don't think they've hit top gear yet. And are they going to hit top gear without Kevin De Bruyne? Who knows? But in terms of just individuals, who's impressed you so far? Like, who are you looking at and thinking?
Yeah. Obviously, Rodri is kind of doing what he did last season and all throughout last season. And it's kind of easy to maybe get just carried away and say it's Rodri in the same way that you do with Haaland. You're just like, oh yeah, he scores and he keeps things ticking over. But Rodri is kind of impressed with his consistency of performance, but also, you know, getting that last minute winner at Sheffield United and showing that he can be involved in more goals, which I think it's always the case, because City lost a lot of goals this summer, really. When you think about Mahrez Gundogan and Palmer leaving, it's kind of all players who will score or will assist, be involved in goals.
Huge goals as well.
Yeah. And then when you take De Bruyne out as well, it's kind of like even more acute that more players need to step up. And we've seen it with Alvarez and Foden and Bernardo Silva a bit, but you do kind of sense that Rodri will need a few more goals this year and wants to score them. He's forever in history for scoring the Champions League winner, but I was speaking to him after Sheffield United, and you can tell he's enjoying that kind of feeling of being the match winner. As much as Guardiola wants his defensive midfielder to never get headlines, Rodri is enjoying that responsibility and stepping up for the team.
You can tell with the celebrations.
Yeah. He's always been like unable to contain himself.
The Arsenal celebration, it's got to be the...
Yeah, that'll go down as the all-time, I think. And then next to him, Kovacic has been really good. Kovacic has settled in really well.
Do you think that's... You were just talking about Rodri getting goals. Yeah. Surely that's going to aid him a little bit in maybe transitional moments, or when, Rodri wants to push up a little bit, sees an opportunity, and maybe that synergy between him and Kovacic allows Rodri to get forward.
Yeah, and I'd not even thought as well, but then I was speaking to Rodri about Kovacic, and he was saying, oh, well, he speaks Spanish, so it's perfect for communicating. And I'd like, oh yeah, he played for Real Madrid, of course he will speak Spanish. But it hadn't kind of clicked until that moment. So I think maybe that's helped the two of them kind of look so in sync together in such an early stage. But yeah, Kovacic being able to kind of play that number 6 role and sort of cover for Rodri going forward is giving City a different dynamic. But also you're seeing it more and more where Kovacic gets the ball and nothing looks on, so he just thinks, right, I'll just run with this ball and take it past 3 players. And that's kind of what City haven't had. And Matheus Nunes might bring a bit of that as well. But at the minute, Kovacic has kind of... He's been one of the sort of stable forces in City's start to the season, really. A few players have had good games, then bad games, whereas Kovacic has kind of been pretty much 7 out of 10, maybe the odd 8 every game. Do
you see Nunes starting games for City, or do you see him as rotation?
Well, a bit of both, really. I think he'll go into sort of a pool of 3-4 midfielders where he will probably start 1 game a week, but maybe not 2. Whereas, say, Rodri will start the majority of games. I think probably Kovacic is ahead of Nunes at this stage, just because he's been embedded in the team longer and he's...
Yeah, I was just thinking if you throw in Bernardo in there as well in terms of options in that midfield, it's pretty vast.
Yeah, and Foden as well, and Phillips. So it's... Yeah, Guardiola's got a lot of options, but we've sort of seen that City's strength now is through the middle, really. They got rid of wingers a while ago. They got rid of fullbacks now, so it's kind of like all through the middle.
And just a weird Jeremy Doku on the the wing, who's just an out-and-out winger, the most out-and-out winger you'll ever see.
Yes, yeah. So, it's that's where City's strength is, so it kind of makes sense that they have those numbers in there.
Are you going to miss Lilo's press conferences?
Do you know, he was better than expected.
He's a very nice man, isn't he?
He's a very nice man. He's a lovely man, and he gave good answers. And you were able to ask him things that that you wouldn't really be able to ask Pep.
He's like a nice granddad figure, isn't he?
Yeah.
Where Pep's like your dad, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. And he was more. You're never kind of sure what you're going to get, but he was more kind of open and happy to chat about things than maybe you would, because, let's be honest, no manager or coach kind of thinks I want to be a manager so I can sit in front of a room of journalists for...
But he really doesn't want to be a manager.
Yeah. But also he's kind of got no, say like, Guardiola was suspended for a Champions League game and Arteta took over a few years ago and Arteta did the press conference. You could tell kind of Arteta enjoyed being front and centre in front of everyone. And it was kind of seen as like, well, this is, the start of the next chapter of Mikel Arteta. Whereas, Lilo has done everything he wants to do in the game, and he's now he's not trying to impress anyone. He's not trying to get his next job or whatever. He's there because he wants to be part of that backroom staff with Pep. So there was nothing. So he could easily have just said, given rubbish answers to everything, but he was quite happy to chat, which is all you want, really. Yeah,
I'm going to miss him. He's not going anywhere. He's just stepping back.
I'm not going to miss that moment where so press conferences with him were simultaneously translated. So we'd have headphones on, and he would speak, and then it would be translated through our ears.
I don't feel sorry for you because I used to edit Marcelo Bielsa's press conferences for hours. So.
But you would be listening, and it felt a bit sort of embarrassing that he's saying something and he might say something funny and then you're laughing like 5 seconds later.
Oh, yeah, of course. I don't think about that.
Or he's waiting for you to ask the question and you're still hearing the end of his last answer.
So if he says something and then he starts laughing, do you just automatically laugh to be polite?
No, I'm waiting to hear what he said. But that sort of, you just feel a bit like, oh, how bad am I not knowing this language? But
back to Pep Guardiola then.
Back to Pep.
And on that note, everybody, we're going to finish with Act 1. We'll be back with Act 2 in just a second. Right, Si. So I wanted to start with this. Big article you wrote yesterday, which has gone pretty viral on the Manchester City sphere. So it's about obviously the charges that City are facing. And obviously at this moment in time, they're preparing evidence to refute very strong accusations from the Premier League that could change the game, really. Do you want to take us through
in
the most succinct way you can?
So there's it's basically an academic paper written by two academics, and one of them's a football finance expert, the other one's a lawyer. They're both at Sheffield Hallam University, and they've just written something in an academic journal about the charges Manchester City are facing and the Premier League and what it kind of means in a wider sense. And I suppose even the fact that this is being written shows what a huge deal it is, not just within the game of football, but within sport and academia. And because the charges against City are so unprecedented and so enormous and could have such significant consequences, everyone, a lot of people are interested in what's going on and what might happen. And, that was certainly the case when UEFA put their 2-year Champions League ban on City, and then Court of Arbitration for Sport overturned it, and is the case now. Everyone's kind of waiting to see what will happen between the Premier League and City, and also weighing up what has gone down so far. So this paper that I got a hold of was just a look basically at what's gone on and sort of drawing some conclusions from that, really. It's very messy and complicated is the main thing, and it's the article kind of takes you through all the different charges that City are facing and sort of how the severity of the charges means that it really will take a lot for the Premier League to be able to claim what they are, for the Premier League to be able to prove what they're claiming, basically. But fundamentally, it's going to be a huge issue within football, which we kind of can expect, because it's going to be not just City are waiting for the outcome to this, but other football clubs who are rivals to City and people, within the game, the heads of other leagues will be looking at this. And then you've also got the Premier League is kind of in a battle with other people to try and maintain their regulation of the game. The charges against City were announced the day before a government white paper was set to talk about regulation of football and that kind of thing. And funnily enough, I think yesterday there was news of how the Premier League were going to clamp down on or try and sort of fast track a lot of these cases, and that came at a time when there was something else published from the government on regulation and what an independent regulator would do. So there's all of these little battles going on inside the main battle that is City versus the Premier League, and it's got a lot of people interested.
Yeah, of course. And like you say, when it comes to rivals, you don't really think of that side of things, do you? Because you almost think it's City preparing against the Premier League, which it is, but there are so many other factors here.
Yeah, and you've also got to consider, so when City were at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, I think it was 8 of the other top 10 wrote to the Court of Arbitration for Sport to try and ensure that City couldn't play in the Champions League until the appeal was heard, because they were worried that City were going to sort of delay and keep playing until the case was heard, whereas in actual fact City worked to get it fast-tracked. But that kind of showed that, there was a lot of Premier League clubs who were interested in City sort of getting what they felt was fair, which didn't turn out to be fair. So those same voices will be in account to that, and that is part of the problem that the Premier League face again with its kind of regulations and keeping all clubs happy, because if it wants to kind of it has to be the regulator, but it also has to work with all these clubs. It's like, David Brent, can I be your boss and your friend? That's the question that it constantly has to answer, and it knows that while the investigation was going on into City, there will have been a lot of clubs interested in what was happening and when anything might happen. And now, obviously, it's happened with the allegations, but there will still be interest in when is the case being heard? How long can we expect until we find something? And, if City are guilty, other clubs might have reason to, ask for gains in terms of, they've lost out from a sporting sense if City are found to have been guilty, even though they deny all the allegations. So there is, like I say, there's so much interest in this from everyone in football, that it is quite messy.
Yeah, and even when you don't look into the specifics of it, it's quite reassuring for fans, I think, seeing the unity and the strength when it comes from City. Obviously, Khaldoon, Pep's spoken about it as well. And I think outwardly facing, you see that as a Man City fan, you think, oh, we're good here, because they've been so successful in every respect. You expect them to. Yeah,
I think that was it as well. I think when it happened, kind of, there's this kind, I suppose some people from kind of outside City sort of maybe see the fans as just like one unified voice who all fundamentally back the club, whatever happens. And there will be some City fans like that, but there are also a lot of fans who, maybe don't agree with every decision the ownership or the hierarchy take and aren't comfortable with some elements of the ownership. And when you are accused with such strength by the Premier League, really, there was, plenty of fans who, like any ordinary person would think, well, like, hang on, that sounds bad, that looks bad, what's gone on? But then Guardiola came out with such strength in his press conference and really nailed his colours to the City mast in a way that he's never done before. He's always supported the club, but with the Uefa allegations, he'd always said, if the club are guilty, I'll walk away. Or if I feel I've been lied to. Whereas here, he really said, no, I'm staying. I'll be with them in League One. And that kind of reassured.
Imagine that.
Yeah. He said, we'll get Paul Dickoff back and play and we'll be fine. And that, like, reassured everyone around City, I think, that, no, this is a club that is together and fundamentally believes they've not done anything wrong.
And it was one of those moments last season where we were speaking about in the last show where it was almost like there was points where Pep would be able to galvanise the side. And even that point when City, outwardly facing once again, probably at their weakest, they were at the strongest in the camp because there was such unity.
Yeah, and it came, funnily enough, the day after they'd played Spurs away and they'd lost and they'd been dismal. And Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, Cheeky Begiristan and Ferran Soriano all ended up in the City dressing room talking to Pep for ages. And then this news comes out Monday morning and you're thinking, do they know in advance? But it turned out later, no, they didn't. They'd just been talking about football because like they're that interested and involved in the football side of things. But things really weren't going well for the team on the pitch. They were like miles off Arsenal at that point. And then this thing came out on the Monday. I think Pep's press conference was the Friday, and then they played Aston Villa on the Sunday, and the fan group 1894 did kind of a welcome for the bus, and they started booing the anthem and the Premier League anthem, and it kind of unified everyone at a time when the team wasn't unified at all, and that kind of inadvertently helped send them on the way to a treble. But yeah, Pep does have this ability to just bring everyone together at certain points.
Kevin De Bruyne one still stands out for me when he came out and wasn't criticising him, but it was certain things that he needs to improve on, and then you just saw Kevin De Bruyne and it's the psychology of the guy is next level, isn't it? Really,
he's playing 8-dimensional chess basically, and the rest
he's
of
a step ahead of everyone else, isn't it? Yeah. Do you feel just on that? I don't mean, it's never been bad in my opinion. And I think this is always like, once again, using that word, but galvanised by the Champions League nights as well, which are incredible at the Etihad. I feel the atmosphere has gone up a notch as well at the Etihad. I mean, everywhere when you're there, when you hear it on the TV, reports that you hear as well, it feels that unity that we're talking about again, that togetherness, it feels it is definitely seeped out to the stands as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it went up a notch last season. First, because of Erling Haaland, I think. Haaland is he's a superstar, and he's a superstar that the Premier League hasn't seen before. And it was kind of like everyone, you had this like aura around him where everyone is excited to see him. And, you know, I've had like a lot more mates text me asking for City tickets since the beginning of last season, not because they're City fans, but they want to see Haaland. And, you know, can't get anyone any tickets.
I was about to ask that.
But, yeah, it's everyone wants to see Haaland, and he, you know, has treated it as like his home, and he does like a lap of honour or a lap of appreciation maybe after every game, and sort of thanks all the fans for coming and really gets them going, and all the players get the fans going, and but then yeah, there was this kind of unity around the Premier League charges, and there's that banner, wasn't there, like Panic on the Streets of London, in regard to the lawyer, that was just like a classic, like 2 fingers from City fans that was like, this is our style and we're going to go with it. Yeah, it has been very good, and I think it was noticed sort of, even if you didn't know how good it was, you definitely know how bad it was, say at Wembley for the Community Shield, and it's even kind of against Newcastle, it was a bit like, I think because it was an 8 o'clock Saturday night, everyone had been maybe indulging in a few drinks during the day. But there was something in one of the Madrid papers after City had beaten them in the Champions League that said like that atmosphere at the Etihad was like nothing Real had faced in years. And when you get other teams like that, and sort of the Haaland effect is not just City, like, you know, they played Barcelona in a friendly and everyone at the Nou Camp was going wild for Haaland, and Haaland was like, everyone at the Bernabeu wanted to see him. So like fans all over the world are enraptured by him. But when it comes to teams coming to the Etihad, it's really started to intimidate teams, I'd say. And like Real in that month and Arsenal in the league just got blown away by, you know, the players and the fans coming together.
I think the night games as well do aid City as well massively. Alex, I know what you're saying. It is, indulging throughout the day and all this sort of stuff. But it does feel like the Etihad under the lights at the minute with how good they are at home as well.
Yeah.
It's the perfect concoction, isn't it, really?
Well, they've won every game this calendar year at the Etihad, which is pretty astonishing.
And you can't see that stopping at all, can you?
No, I'm sure it will at some point, but it does just feel like they're unstoppable at home, and even when they are a bit sticky against, say, Fulham at the weekend or whatever, they do just find a way to win.
Right, guys, we're going to leave it there for Act 2. Stick around and we'll be back in Act 3. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Talking City podcast. Si, I wanted to talk about the Manchester City rebrand. Now, we've seen Gundogan, Mahrez, Laporte, Cancelo all leave. And once again, straight off the bat, we've seen Pep Guardiola able to, well, I guess it's probably the first time he's had to do it, really, in terms of like this regeneration project with players coming in and others stepping up from, development squads, etc., etc. You'd expect maybe the next stage of this project for maybe Walker to move on, or Bernardo in years' time, whatever. But so far, litmus test again, it looks pretty good right now for Man City. They don't look to have been affected in a negative way by these big players leaving the club.
Yeah. It's become, they've been very, very good at replacing players that should be irreplaceable. Like they've got 3 outside the Etihad, they've got statues too that kind of they've somehow managed to replace. We don't know whether it was a good transfer window or not. Really, we won't kind of know until the season progresses. And how does Kovacic fit in? How does Nunes fit in? How does Guardiola kind of improve as a player within the system? But like you say, it's been pretty good, and certainly with those players, you can sort of see why they've been signed and how they would fit in. And Doku is the real interesting one because, like I say, he's not kind of a winger that they've been used to. And you can sort of, I don't know, you can maybe see him like dribbling past 8 players and sticking it in the net and Pep taking him off instantly because he's not been in the space that he should have been in or something like that. But, the idea of Pep, who has this amazing track record for developing young talent and like young world-class talent, and him getting to work with a player who is already exciting to anyone who watches him is quite an exciting prospect, and also helps keep it feeling fresh. That's the real challenge with City for how do they keep going on, and how, because it is like, in any walk of life, like anyone who has success, like how do you get it again and how do you keep replicating that? And I think for City, it's it does feel fresher than usual this season, with, say, Gundogan moving on and Mahrez, and you get like De Bruyne being out for so long as well, which obviously is still part of the group, but it does feel like he's like you are missing that really experienced and quality player. So there are opportunities to be had. We've spoken a lot about Foden and Alvarez. You would expect that partnership or those two individuals to sort of move into that space and see what they can do, and we're waiting to see on the new signing. So there's plenty of potential for things to sort of flourish, I suppose, as the season goes on.
And still a lot of risks taken as well. Let's talk about Cole Palmer moving on and Gundogan as well. Palmer
obviously going to Chelsea is a risk because there's every chance that he can come back and in a year's time everyone's saying, why have you sold Cole Palmer to a rival? He's doing so well. What I would say is, again, City have a pretty good track record of that. Jadon Sancho hasn't really done it at Manchester United. Everyone was saying last season, why did you sell Zinchenko and Jesus when Arsenal were top of the league? And Arsenal didn't win the league, so that kind of wasn't seen as that bad after all. No one's kind of said similar about Raheem Sterling, really. So City, in their decisions, have been pretty good with who they've let go. I think it's a risk on its own to let Palmer go. It's a risk to have the squad so small. I'd say James McAtee going on loan to Sheffield United is a risk because it just removes that safety net maybe of bodies. I know Guardiola likes to work with a small squad, but it is a very small squad, and we spoke to Amar Lilo and he sort of said, well, that's what the academy's for. The academy's been not cut down to the bones, but like it's had that fat trimmed from it with sales and loans as well. So there really aren't that much. They talk about, there's a few academy gems coming through. We don't really know who they are, which isn't to say that they're not there, but it's not like those options are clear and obvious and sort of everyone knows who's ready to take the next step. I think it'll be more like you'll get like a Rico Lewis who was very good, but no one saw him making as big an impact so early. So City are going to have to be careful with injuries. They're going to have to be lucky with injuries, and they're going to have to look after all of their players. They can't expect Rodri to play 90 minutes every 3 days.
We said that last season.
Well, yeah, but he's spoken to the coaches about it because he said, I can't.
It's going to kill his career, isn't it?
Yeah. So they need to take that into account. And you see, Kovacic and Nunes should allow him to rest a bit more. But it's exciting, but it's risky.
As is football. Rivals, I've got down here in big block letters.
Yeah.
Have any really impressed you as of, obviously we said the standout was probably Arsenal sticking 3 past Man United at the weekend, but even watching that game, and we know Man United are nowhere near it, but even watching that game, you're thinking Man United are a little bit, they're in this game. And I didn't watch that game and think there's much between the two teams, to be quite honest with you. There was obviously the last 10 minutes where it got away from them.
Yeah.
But you would expect Arsenal, with the window that they've had, to almost have elevated themselves maybe closer to a City level. And with what I'm seeing right now, I'm wondering who that next team is going to be to Man City.
Yeah. I think it was huge for Arsenal beating United because it was a game that they could have lost and nearly lost. And then having drawn at home to Fulham, it would have been serious questions. That's the beauty of the international break, isn't it? Because you get 2 weeks to dissect over what's gone on. And if, Arsenal on the back of, say, a draw and a defeat would have been pretty down in the dumps, I think, whereas this, last minute win is makes them feel a lot happier and should kick them on. It gives them a platform to kick on, and I think they will, be up there. The really interesting game is I think City go to the Emirates the beginning of October, just before the next international break. So again, if City win, then Arsenal deflated. If Arsenal win, then they're really high for the next 2 weeks. Liverpool have really impressed me, and not necessarily with their play, but just kind of, I was in the car driving to a City game, I think the week they played Bournemouth at home, and they were, they almost conceded in the first minute, and then they conceded in the second minute, and it felt like, here we go again with Liverpool, the defence hasn't been fixed. They win that game 3-1, and then I was coming back from the Sheffield United City match when they were 1-0 down to Newcastle and down to 10 men, and they come back and win that 2-1. So I'm not sure the defensive issues have been fixed from last season. I don't think they've kept a clean sheet yet. Or maybe they did their last game.
Yeah, Newcastle. Did Newcastle?
So they beat Newcastle away, and then 2-1 at Newcastle, and then I think they won. Did they win 3-0?
Oh yeah, there'll be a clean sheet in there
Yeah, I
somewhere.
think they won 3-0 the last game. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I think, we're still waiting. And also, we kind of thought they would get Lavia or Caicedo, and they didn't. They have got Gravenberch. I'm not sure how well. I'm not sure they've got the number 6 that they need.
Yeah, so he's not the profile at all, I don't think.
No. But Liverpool, for having moments in their opening games where they could have crumbled or could have kind of given up, to sort of show that resolve. And they had a really tricky first 4 matches. So to take 10 points is very good for them. So I think I predicted that Liverpool would be City's closest challengers. And when they were 1-0 down to Newcastle, I thought, oh my God, that's going to be embarrassing. But I think they've certainly impressed me.
I think it's that front. Still the front line, isn't it? And especially when you've seen Luis Diaz back into the fold. It's now, obviously, he was out with a long-term injury, and now he's back. It's like Szoboszlai added to that as well, who looks good.
And keeping Salah, because Salah was the other one where, if he was going to go, that could really derail them. But they've got this talisman who can win them games, and also another guy who just knows how to win the Premier League. So I think, again, would Europe kind of distract them maybe in the Premier League, or just kind of take away freshness of legs for them maybe? But so far I think they've probably been the most impressive, and then Arsenal the next.
Manchester United in disarray, which is always nice to see.
See, but had United beaten Arsenal, it would have been 3 wins from 4.
It's just a lot of chaos going on there at the minute.
There's a lot of chaos, yeah. And even though, because I think the 2 wins they've not played very well in, and that was one of the VAR issues that should have been overturned, that Onana penalty against Wolves. So United and then Chelsea have kind of shown how inconsistent they remain, really.
Time, isn't it, I think, with Chelsea?
Yeah, it's one of them where, having spent so much money, they should be challenging, but then you always say that on the assumption that kind of that money has been spent well.
And having 900 players on your books, it's not easy, is it?
Yeah.
Ballon d'Or chat. Got on here.
Yeah.
Messi or Haaland? World Cup or 52 goals?
Well, it's Haaland for me.
Justify.
He broke so many records, and, everyone always had this thing. We had it with Pep when you come to England. Yeah, you've done all right in other leagues, but can you cut it? It's that old Stoke on a Tuesday night. And Haaland just did it after sort of a debut that was written about hysterically in the Community Shield when he missed that chance. And some of the coverage around it was just like, do we maybe want to give a bit of perspective to this? And then very soon he made all that coverage look incredibly daft. And he's just forced us to rethink like what expectations should be for a striker, and has literally changed English football with the way that he plays. And you sort of see it in the way teams set up, in that, they're either so obsessed with marking him that it frees up someone else, or they just can't keep a handle on him. And he scores. He scored kind of every different kind of goal during his season. Like, not too many spectacular ones, but the ones that were really very good.
I think he's going to miss out, isn't he?
I think he is, yeah. I wrote about it recently, and it's kind of like he's had like the best season you could imagine for a club, and is one of the best players in the world, but he's up against the greatest player ever, who's won the greatest prize ever. And the World Cup still holds kind of huge... Yeah, especially for Ballon. Whenever there's kind of a World Cup, you think, well, the prize will probably go to somebody who's won the World Cup, and especially when it's Messi.
The whole thing evidence in Ronaldo a couple of years ago, was the Euro win, wasn't it, with Portugal? Yeah. It was always won the Euro, so he has to get it.
Yeah. And these kind of players are seen as like dragging their teams to the win, and Messi certainly did. I suppose on the flip side, there's no one really talking about Mbappe to win it, and he had a phenomenal World Cup as well.
Does seem like the team accolade comes a bit above like individual prowess, doesn't it, really?
It's one of them, it's what you're up against on the year, because like, you know, Haaland could probably have a worse year this year and win it next year, because he won't be up against someone who's won a World Cup and someone who is Messi who's won a World Cup. So it will feel, you know, he might be a little frustrated that he doesn't win it if he doesn't win it. But if he plays like he is, he will have many more opportunities to win it, and maybe in 10 years' time or 12 years' time, he might have got Norway to the semi-finals or something and not have had a great year, but done that, and that clout sort of means that he wins one where some up-and-comer does not. So
I guess it's still like, the criteria for it's still a bit vague, isn't it? It's still ambiguous. It's like, is the Ballon d'Or the best footballer in the world? Because then, as you've just illustrated, and I would also agree, it's Messi.
Yeah.
But if you're looking on the last year what Haaland has done in the last year.
And I also should have done more research, but I don't know when it's voted for. Because again, kind of like a Messi who's doing basically nothing at PSG is very different to a Messi who clips from MLS are going around the world like every 2 days about him
40 goals and 60
scoring brilliant goals. So it's kind of like, you know, the hype around Messi at the minute is much, much bigger than it was when he was at PSG.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good point, actually, yeah. It was a bit vacant there, wasn't it? But when it's gone the MLS now, and that's obviously the World Cup. But finally, let's move on. Ukraine versus England coming up tomorrow night, I believe it is. How many City players do we think are going to feature for this one? Standard Southgate selection.
Yeah, is don't care an answer? Maybe.
Phillips in there, though, to get some minutes, I guess.
Yeah, very interesting that Phillips got picked for the squad.
I mean, it's ridiculous, really, isn't it? Even though we're a City podcast, it is quite ridiculous.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It's really tough.
And I just mean that in terms of minutes for him as well.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like
yeah. It feels daft that you can play 0 minutes for your club and still be deemed an option for your country. And also when, I mean, Southgate was saying he's sort of the second best number 6 behind Declan Rice, and I'd imagine Pep's almost at the point of like preferring Ederson over Phillips at 6. So it's like there are so many players ahead of him at 6 for City, even though obviously they're not English. Although maybe Lewis or Stones would get the nod. So
you expect Grealish to miss that.
Yeah. And the thing is with Phillips, like, he's so popular still with City fans, and like he came on, I think 3 players came on before him against Fulham, but he came on against Fulham for his first minutes of the season, and everyone's so like wanting him to do well. There is still that goodwill that you wouldn't always get with players, which, you know, I think speaks to how Phillips is. But yeah, he's just yet to show. So maybe he can do something with England that'll make Pep think, yeah, actually, I can use this guy a bit more. And the other one, I suppose, is Foden, because in the same way as his club career, Foden's not really nailed down an England start, and he's obviously got huge competition with Rashford and Saka and others. So will he play centrally? Will he play at all?
Then you look at Madrid are playing Bellingham. I think it's in the advanced state 10 now, aren't they? So is Southgate going to do that?
So, you know, Rice, Bellingham and Foden sounds like a dream midfield, but whether that is what Southgate wants for balance, and whether he does he want to play Jordan Henderson for all the time instead, even though he's playing in a Tin Pot League? I don't know. The opportunity is there for Foden to really kind of do what everyone's been expecting him to do for some time now.
Did I see as well? And I'm a little bit the same with England. But did I see Nketiah got in and Watkins didn't? Is that?
Yeah.
So I didn't know if Watkins had picked up an injury. That seems crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about strikers just behind Haaland in terms of what they've done.
Yeah. Again, a bit like, the Ballon d'Or really counts international football. I think what Nketiah had done for England under-21s has really counted in his favour. England obviously have appointed their under-21s manager in Southgate, and there's a real kind of wish to keep those players who've been in the system coming through. And Nketiah's obviously started the season with Arsenal, and they obviously feel that he's come through the ages at England and done well every time, and is a chance for him. But it does count against those players such as Watkins. I think Raheem Sterling is unfortunate to miss out again. James Ward-Prowse could even say, I've signed for a new team to stay in the Premier League and had a really good start to that team. Someone else who's essentially binned off his professional career to go to Saudi Arabia is still in the squad. There are a few strange calls in the England squad, but it's still a very good team.
Yep. Well, let's hope Phillips does get some minutes. It'd be nice to see Foden centrally, Stones in there as well, but please, no injuries. Guys, we'll leave it there. Si, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, mate. And we'll be back discussing West Ham next week, and we're going to become a little bit of an England podcast because we'll have Ukraine to speak about, and obviously the big one on Tuesday, Scotland. So, we'll have that to discuss, everyone. Really appreciate you stopping by. I'm sure appreciating our new setting. We'll be back on next Monday discussing everything Manchester City. Really appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out us on all of your favourite podcast providers as well. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating, and we'll see you in a bit. Cheers.